Good. Good. All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is William Fritzy. I am the chief of the Gun Violence Task Force here in the city of Philadelphia, as well as the director of the Digital Forensics Lab at the District Attorney's Gun Violence Task Force. I want to welcome all of our partners today from the FBI, PPD, the U.S. Attorney's Office, who have all come together in this collaboration to announce the arrest of 19 defendants. In a little while, I'll get into or have another district attorney get into the background of those arrests. But this is a continued commitment by the District Attorney's Office, whether it's us ensuring that there's a gun court running in the city, to establishing other units to target violent offenders and gun crimes in the city of Philadelphia. That's what we're doing, and that's what you're seeing out of the efforts of the Gun Violence Task Force to help reduce gun violence in the city of Philadelphia. That is our commitment, not only to reduce that violence, but also to the victims of these crimes, that justice will be served, that they are not forgotten, and that we are going to continue to help impact the community in a positive way. So you'll also hear from our victim services team today as to what they're doing with these new arrests and how they are working to make those connections between the investigation and then to the resolution and the justice seeking for those victims. The Gun Violence Task Force, back in 2017, 2018, we began to expand with attorneys. We created a digital forensic lab, and we started a new perspective of investigative work with the District Attorney's Office, PPD, Office of Attorney General, ATF, FBI, and the U.S. Attorney's Office. And what you are seeing today are the fruits of that new perspective. Placing prosecutors alongside criminal investigative analysts and agents and detectives throughout the city to work side by side to work on lowering the violence in our city and, in turn, solving cold case homicides, shootings, and other violent crime. Now, the team today that we are going to introduce that has worked on all of this has worked diligently over 2 years, utilizing the investigative grand jury to bring justice to victims and their families and to make Philadelphia a more safe city. I cannot begin to express my gratitude for that team, the district attorneys who worked on this case, the U.S. attorneys who partnered with us, the detectives, but also those patrol officers who responded to the scene, ensured that the evidence was collected correctly, those detectives who also responded there as well, and in many times saved the lives of those shooting victims by scooping them and taking them to the hospitals. So this is a work over 2 years, and you're going to hear that these investigations were about incidents over a multi-year period. I also should thank the grand jurors who sat, listened to all of this information, put it together, and helped us formulate who these groups were that were creating and driving the violence in the city. I want to thank the lead attorneys on the investigation, Anna Walters and Marianne Aguilar. I want to thank the lead detectives who put in countless hours, Detective Ryan Moore, Detective David Ganone. A huge thank you to our forensic analyst at the Gun Violence Task Force, Nathan Isaacs. But I also want to thank our director and Assistant U.S. Attorney Ashley Martin, director of the Public Safe Neighborhoods Recon Initiative. It's a newer collaboration between our office and other law enforcement agencies. We also have with us today Dan Tantino, Special Agent in charge of the FBI, and many other law enforcement partners. And we could not do that work without them. And I'm often asked, what is the message that we're trying to convey? What are we doing here? And I think my message is similar to what the police commissioner or the district attorney or others have routinely said. We know that crime is dropping. We know that violent crime is dropping. But we're not going to let our foot off the gas. We have a ton of unsolved cases in the city of Philadelphia, and we have violence occurring every day. And so we are going to continue to push forward with these types of partnerships and these types of investigations. You have to understand that these investigations take a while, but we are going to identify you, you will be arrested, and you will be prosecuted. And you will go to jail. And if you don't believe us, I want you to take a look at some of the results that we've had as the Gun Violence Task Force with these investigations. Starting back in 2017, 2018, the task force arrested members of 31st Street and 27th Street, a total of over 20 defendants. For state time that they served on their sentence combined was 211 to 423 years. They also served some federally for 44 months. In the Southwest Division, we've had defendants that were arrested for the North Side, South Side investigations. Defendants are now serving sentences of 17.5 to 35 years, 8 to 16 years, 9 to 18 years. Again, in Southwest Division, 0 to the 4, 524, all groups you've heard of before. First-degree murder convictions, 17.5 to 35 years, 20 to 40 years, another 20 to 40 years. In North Philadelphia, the B&G gang, 8 defendants arrested, 40 to 80 years, 30 to 70 years, 30 to 60 years, 35 to 70 years. The list goes on. And we are continuing those investigations throughout the city because we're not letting up. And today is just another example of us continuing with those arrests. So you will be arrested. You will go to jail. These are solid investigations, and they will continue until the violence comes to an end. Now, at this time, I'd like to call up ADA Anna Walters to get into the exact information regarding this case. And then we'll move on from there and hear from Captain Kearney from the police department, and then some members of our victim services and other CARES outreach programs. Anna?
Good afternoon, everyone. We are very excited today to announce the arrests of these 19 individuals who are really crime drivers in Philadelphia. What we were able to uncover during the grand jury and its investigation over a multi-year investigation is that these multiple gangs and their individuals that are associated with and are members of those gangs have really amplified gun violence in Philadelphia. So today we've made arrests of the following individuals associated with the Young Bag Chasers, YBC: Stephen Weddington, Jameer Burbage, Kasim Brown, Jerwayne Haywood, Salahuddin Carter, Quamir Hall, and Mark Johnson. We've also arrested in relation to campers, clappers with a C, clappers with a K, CCK, the following individuals: Hassan Stafford, Nasir Wells, Anthony Woodson, Herman Stiegel, and Ronnie Vincent Kwan. Associated with the Parkside Killers, referenced as PSK, there have been arrests made for Marquise Muhammad and Paul Beckwith. And we've also made arrests for individuals who are associated in terms of their criminal involvement with these groups and with these individuals who are driving crime. And those individuals would be Hassan Muse and Tatiana Edwards. So of the arrests made, these span a number of incidents between 2022 and 2024. A number of those are shooting incidents, and others are homicides, beginning with a shooting incident on September 21st of 2022 on 75th Street, a shooting incident on September 22nd of 2022, which was a double non-fatal shooting. One of the victims hit in this incident was only 8 years old. October 7th of 2022, an incident on Wallace Street. October 29th of 2022, which is a triple non-fatal shooting on Aspen Street. 3 individuals were hit in that shooting, all of whom were attending a memorial for another victim of gun violence. We also made arrests for a September 30th of 2022 shooting incident, the homicide of Tajay Brooks on December 5th of 2022, the homicide of Kamir Scott on May 16th of 2023, a triple non-fatal shooting on Jefferson Street on May 27th of 2023, in which 3 individuals were struck by gunfire, a shooting incident on May 30th of 2023, the homicide of Sharif King on July 8th of 2023. I'll note that 2 other individuals were previously arrested for this incident, but we were able, through the grand jury, to identify other co-defendants in this case. A shooting incident was also made arrests for on July 27th of 2023 on Manton Street. A non-fatal shooting at 52nd and Jefferson Street on October 5th of 2023, in which one individual was struck with gunfire. October 6th of 2023, a non-fatal shooting on 600 North Brooklyn Street. A shooting incident on October 10th of 2023 on North 53rd Street. A shooting incident on November 4th of 2023 on 53rd Street. We also made arrests of a homicide, the homicide of Zaire Stafford, on December 7th of 2023. That homicide took place on 29th and Clearfield Street. Arrests were made on a shooting incident for December 11th of 2023 on 56th Street, December 15th of 2023 on Girard Avenue, a shooting incident on January 22nd of 2024 on Arch Street. An additional arrest was made for an incident on March the 13th of 2024 at Lancaster Avenue. And finally, multiple arrests were made in relation to the homicide of Quadir Cheeks on May the 18th of 2024. What we saw through this investigation is that the same group of people repeatedly were doing shootings, using the same guns to do those shootings, and bragging about those shootings on social media. What we've learned from this investigation is that you can't brag about a homicide, you can't brag about the people that you killed or your score on Philly scoreboard without an investigation leading to your arrest. We plan to prosecute all of these individuals to the fullest extent that we can. There's one specific individual who will be charged as a direct file juvenile on one incident that was committed before he turned 18, but the rest are all adult defendants and will be prosecuted as such.
At this time, I'd ask Captain Kearney to come up. He can talk a little bit about the arrest this morning and any other facts of the investigation.
Good afternoon. I am Captain James Kearney from the Shooting Investigations Group, Philadelphia Police Department. I'm here today, and it is a very exciting day for law enforcement, for the Philadelphia Police Department and the Shooting Investigations Group. When you look at the sheer numbers of people involved and the amount of gun violence that occurred on the streets of Philadelphia, it is incredible to think that the work, including my detectives, Detectives Ganone and Detectives Moore, led by Sergeant Nowakowski, Sergeant Linder, and Lieutenant Johnson, as well as every unit of the Philadelphia Police Department. This is a combined effort. It's a good day for the police department to see these people finally held accountable. They might have thought that they got away with it. These are several years old, but they didn't. You know, we work every day with the Gun Violence Task Force on solving these crimes, and that ability, that collaboration gives us a chance to take a deep dive into these investigations that may have stalled at certain points, that may have not been a lot of information coming in at some times, but we don't stop. We don't stop with the Gun Violence Task Force, with our federal partners, with other local partners, other police departments working inside this city. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that the Criminal Intel Unit for both the Gun Violence Team and the Police Department and SWAT and Highway and working with their federal partners, the ATF and the FBI, we do that on a daily basis with our unit, and it is showing results. And it's days like this that we can sit back and enjoy it, but let me tell you, our work is not done. It's not done, like Commissioner Bethel always says, because it matters, and we will see to it that everybody who commits violent gun crimes in this city will be held accountable. Thank you.
This time I'd ask Tania Leonard, who is the supervisor of our CARES unit, to come forward to discuss the work of CARES. And then followed by Marielle Dela Cruz to discuss the work of the Victim Service Unit and what they're doing as of today with these matters.
Good afternoon. I am Tania Leonard. I'm the director of the CARES unit. CARES is the Crisis Assistance, Response, and Engagement for Survivors unit here at the DAO. When a life is tragically taken by violence, the impact of families and communities is immediate and profound. The CARES unit was created to provide timely, compassionate support to survivors, offering crisis intervention, emotional care, and helping navigate difficult days that follow. We typically support families within the first 45 to 60 days after a homicide. Our team is trained to work alongside families and during their darkest moments, connecting them with mental health resources, victim services, and practical assistance as they cope with trauma and loss. CARES is available to support families throughout the city without consideration and prior to or regardless of an arrest. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Marielle De La Cruz. I'm the Director of the Victim Services Unit here at the District Attorney's Office. Today, as we charge and we announce these charges, we're deeply troubling cases. We want to center the voices and the needs of the families and the survivors impacted by these crimes. Behind every case, there is a person, there is a family and a community member who is forever impacted. So I want to take a moment to center the families and the victims impacted. The mission of the Victim Services Unit is to ensure that no victim walks through this process alone. Myself and several victim witness coordinators assigned to the Homicide Non-Fatal Shootings Unit have been reaching out to the families impacted by these crimes all this morning. There will be additional follow-up and additional outreach at a later time. Our unit collaborates with CARES in our relocations and our 9 contracted providers, and we provide comprehensive trauma-informed as a collective. And the main focus is to support victims and survivors in the city of Philadelphia. We provide services like crisis intervention, emotional support, safety planning for victims and their family, court accompaniment and updates on all cases coming up and all proceedings coming up, assistance with filing for victims' compensation, VCAP, with the state, referrals to counseling, relocation assistance, and community resources. We also work closely with our law enforcement partners, our ADAs in the office, to ensure that victims and their voices are heard throughout the process, the legal process, and that their rights are protected and their dignity is upheld. We recognize that cases involving gun violence create lasting trauma for everyone impacted, not only for those injured, but for families, witnesses, and entire neighborhoods. Our unit is here to support healing, stability, and empowerment. To the victims and the families impacted by this tragedy, we see you, we support you, and we remain committed to standing beside you at every step of the way. If you have any questions, or are there any witnesses or any victims who need to get in contact with our Victim Services Unit, please do so at 215-686-8027. Again, the number is 215-686-8027. Thank you.
All right, everyone. I think that takes us to the question and answer portion. But before we do that, I just want to reemphasize, right? We are dealing and have dealt with in this investigation a lot of victims. I think there are something over 35 victims, ranging in age from starting at 5 years old. A 5-year-old watching a shooting occur is ridiculous. So today is the day. The District Attorney's Office, the Police Department, the U.S. Attorney's Office, all of our partners, all of our law enforcement partners are saying, victims, it took us a little bit. It took us a little bit. But we figured it out. We got justice for you today. And we're going to get justice for you. We're not letting up. So when we start with this question and answer, I think that we need to keep that centered right here. Right? This investigation, the work that these detectives do, is based on the victims that have not had justice yet. And today is a good day for them. It's a good day for our departments. It's a good day to show the collaboration that we all have with each other to help the city of Philadelphia. All right. Can I guess I will start. This is new for me. Joe, 3 CBS, Joe Holden.
Hey, Bill, could you address the note on bragging? What did your investigation uncover, specifically as it relates to victims? I know you just framed us keeping that in mind. It seems like a level of arrogance that these criminals, you say, were bragging about what what they did.
I think Anna Walters would be able to go into a little more detail. I will say that, yes, right, this is arrogance. This is, I'm going to go out and do a shooting, and then I'm going to mock you. I'm going to mock you, and it's going to perpetuate that violence, right? It becomes cyclical. Because then the people who are friends with the victim who was shot want to retaliate. And so we go back and forth about this bragging rights, right, that you were able to pick up a gun and pull a trigger. That's nothing to brag about. It does not take many brain cells to pull a trigger, right? They shouldn't be bragging about that. But what they're doing is causing more violence on the street as a result. But I think in these cases in particular, there was quite a bit of that going on, and I'll bring Anna up to discuss that.
I think what we saw repeatedly is that for these groups, a lot of the ways in which they are getting their message out there is via social media and via music videos. And ultimately what we see is that their message is violence. We have an individual who we know to be associated with YBC, Abdul Vix, who is now deceased. He has stated publicly over and over that the way that they fuel themselves, the way that they fuel their music is via violence. And we see that through their music videos in which they discuss victims of homicides, and we see that in retaliatory music videos. So what we often saw was a pattern in which an individual or a group of individuals would commit a shooting or commit a homicide, then the rapper for their group would make a music video about it, and then the opposing group would make a retaliatory homicide and release a music video as well. So I won't get into the specifics of what we were able to do with those music videos, but certainly I think it's horrific what they've done with music in Philadelphia. Philadelphia is known for its drill rap, in which people are bragging about these horrible acts of violence. And I think what we need to see is that you cannot brag about violence, you cannot make music about violence that you've committed without consequences here.
Did they give you a roadmap, essentially? When you unlocked the ability to follow these music videos, did that eventually then, was that part of how this unraveled?
It certainly was part of our investigation.
And just to follow up on what Anna said, one of the things that you need to remember with this drill music, if it's on YouTube, right, they're monetizing this, right? And Mr. Vix talked about that as well, right? We're not dealing with drug dealers shooting at each other, right? We're not dealing with some sort of corrupt organization. The corrupt organization is the fact that the citizens of Philadelphia are going on and watching drill music, and then the commercials come on, and these gang members are getting paid, right? Not necessarily Mr. Vix. Maybe he's not the one pulling the trigger, but he's going to then provide some of that funding to the people who are giving him the material to rap about, right? So parents in this city, if your children are listening to violent drill music, you are causing part of the problem. We need to get these kids off of drill music, get them off of YouTube and watching these videos. When we get on and we watch and that commercial gets on, whoever pulled that trigger is getting funding to go do it again. All right? So that is part of the problem as well. It's not just the arrogance, it's that they are making money off of this as well. Any other questions?
Thanks, Bill.
All right. John Paul from 6ABC.
Yeah, a couple things. One, for the arrests, can you give me an idea of the time range for when these arrests were made? I heard reference today a couple of times. I want to clarify that. And also, will you be using these music videos in the courtroom?
So I believe, I can give that to the captain here, but I believe this morning at 6 a.m. arrests occurred. There are some defendants who are already in custody, but those who were out of custody were picked up this morning. It is certainly the ability to use these music videos at trial can somewhat be challenging, but it's definitely all things that we are going to use. Motions will be filed, and we'll be using all of this information to tell the story of this group, right? They are a group. They are acting in concert with one another, and so it would be our prerogative to use that information in a very compelling way to get convictions on these cases and to sustain those convictions afterwards. Did you want to talk a little bit about the arrests or anything, Robert?
Yeah, like Bill Fritchie said, a lot of these people are already in custody, serving in custody for other crimes. but Philadelphia Police Department, in conjunction with Philly SWAT, the FBI Violent Crimes Task Force, and FBI SWAT, we executed warrants at 5 locations today. One was in Jersey, so we did utilize a New Jersey task force to execute that. So they were all done this morning between the hours of right around 6 a.m., 6:15 a.m.
Anything further? All right. Wayne Wright with 10 NBC. All right. Elaine Fisher with Fox 29.
I had a question for Mario. Just about when you were contacting some of the victims' families today, what was their reaction?
Well, I don't want to speak for the reactions of the family, just so that I'm respectful of their time. But as you can imagine, when tragedy like this happens in our communities, and then we have a sense of some form of justice, it brings a multitude of emotions, and it might mean relief, but also frustration at the same time. So I don't want to speak directly as to the reaction, just to protect the families. But I will say, just from doing this work, it's many different emotions happening all at once.
And just to follow up with Marielle and Victim Services, they began their outreach this morning on these matters. There are some phone numbers we don't have for shooting victims from that long ago. If you were connected to one of these cases, if you were a victim or a witness on one of these cases, please reach out to the Victim Services Unit here at the District Attorney's Office. The number is, I used to be a victim advocate, so I knew the number, but the number is 215-686-8027. That's 215-686-8027. Any other questions? All right. Kristen Johansson, KYW.
I see Ms. Martin is here, and I wanted to understand the partnership that the U.S. Attorney's Office played with the DA's office, and why, and if this is possibly something would go to federal level and prosecute federally, or both, or an explanation of that.
So the District Attorney's Office and Gun Violence Task Force is partner in what is called the Public Safe Neighborhoods Recon, and Ms. Martin is the director of that over at the U.S. Attorney's Office. Through that, it's yet another partnership for law enforcement, right? Federal partners, state partners, all working together. In cases like this, we mentioned, right, some of these individuals are currently in custody. Well, you'll see that some of them are currently in custody on federal cases. And that's because a 2-year investigation, you might identify a murderer and you need to get that murderer off the street. And in that kind of situation, we can leverage our federal partners to look at certain cases if an individual is arrested and place that person in federal custody and awaiting trial in the federal system while we then work on this grand jury investigation there. It's one of the options, and that's one of the reasons you will see when you get the list of the defendants that some of them are in federal custody. Not just that, but we want to combine all of our resources, state, federal, and local. And so that's another reason that Ms. Martin is here, because we want to work as a team and we want to address gun violence as much as we can here in the city of Philadelphia.
And this is kind of a sidebar question, but can you, for all the people who don't ever want to go to jury service, can you explain why grand juries are so important in cases like this? This is a massive takedown, and you had jurors that refused, correct?
Yeah, so the grand jury process is a little under a 2-year process, a 2-year commitment for grand jurors. It's important. It's important. Why is it important? You get a fresh look. You get a fresh look of what's happening in your city, right? You understand the problems that the police are up against, that the prosecutors are up against, because you're looking at the evidence at ground level and determining, is there enough even here to arrest this person? Not prosecute, not serve on a jury and decide beyond a reasonable doubt that someone's guilty, but is there enough that we can move on? And you see time and time again the same individuals committing these violent crimes. And I am sure, I can't speak on behalf of the grand jurors, but I am sure they reach a point in their investigations where they also feel as though it is time to make an arrest. And they know that they don't have the information from the detectives or wherever they're looking yet for. I think the grand jury process, if you receive a grand jury notice, you should try and serve on that grand jury. I think you will have a better understanding of your fellow citizens, both those committing crimes and those being affected by crimes. And you make the difference in the city. 19 people were arrested today because a room of people, regular citizens in Philadelphia, sat for 2 years and figured out who was pulling the trigger. That's amazing. Regular, ordinary citizens, not me who gets paid, regular, ordinary citizens sat around and they figured it out. They identified people who were in a gang, they identified the gang, and they identified the crimes that they perpetuated. So if you get a chance to be on a grand jury, you should take it. Why? Because you're going to help your kids, your grandkids, your neighbor, and you're going to address this crime in the city of Philadelphia. Sorry, Kristen, you got me doing a closing. Sherry Stone. Captain.
Well, yeah, there were 5 locations. Now, like we said, a lot of these people were in custody. There were 5 locations that were executed warrants today, physical locations, 3 in the city, one on the 800 block of Lex Street, North Lex, one in Absecon, one at 6400 Lawton, one in the 5600 block of Upland, and one was out in Indiana. So they're the 5 locations. We also recovered 5 handguns this morning, so that will continue our investigation into some of those guns. And like I said, this investigation is just getting started. We will lodge all detainers on the people in custody and make sure that they come through the shooting investigations group. Well, like they mentioned earlier, there were several members of different gangs that were arrested here, the YBC, the CCK. So, yeah, there were several gangs that that these groups have touched, and a couple that, maybe not be fully vetted gang members, but were associated with members.
Ellie Rushing with Philadelphia Inquirer.
So the 5 people taken into custody today, that mean the other 14 are all in custody already?
I will turn that over to Ms. Walters.
There are several individuals who remain with arrest warrants outstanding. I won't give names as to not impede the investigation, but there are other individuals that will be arrested at a future date. Sure. So starting with the homicide of Tajay Brooks on December the 5th of 2022, Anthony Woodson, Ronnie Vincent Kwan, and Herman Stiegel were arrested for that homicide. The May 16th of 2023 homicide of Tamir Scott, Marquise Muhammad was arrested for that homicide. The July 8th homicide of Sharif King, in which there are previously 2 previously arrested co-defendants. Stephen Weddington was arrested on that homicide. And on the December 7th, 2023 homicide of Zaire Stafford, Stephen Weddington and Jameer Burbage were arrested. And finally, on the May 18th, 2024 homicide of Quadir Cheeks, Stephen Weddington, Jameer Burbage, Hassan Muse, and Tatiana Edwards were arrested today.
Would you all be able to go through the timeline of the investigation when you started kind of putting the puzzle pieces together and how all these were?
Sure. It's been a multi-year investigation. I believe it kicked off about 2 years ago. From the beginning of the investigation, we were able to identify individuals who may or may not be associated with some groups. We spent the beginning of our investigation really just determining who's who. Who are they talking to? Who are they posting about? Who are they in music videos with? And from there, we were able to look at ballistics evidence for various cold cases, and things sort of continued to build on top of each other from there. Thank you.
Ms. Rushing, just to follow up on that question about who we're naming and who's out there. Obviously, we don't always release every single name for the arrests, and that's because maybe there's either an ongoing investigation or our law enforcement is actively working on those arrests, and we don't want to put anyone in harm's way, and we want those arrests to occur seamlessly. So that might be a reason as to why one of those names doesn't appear on the list today. Jack Tomchuk from Metro.
So these 19 arrests and these groups are looking at shooting 2022 and 2024. Do you believe these groups are still active in the community and causing violence, or does it seem like this is a quote unquote takedown and they're not really that much of a presence?
Well, I think any time that anybody associates themselves with a group, they are a problem for and pulling a trigger and advocating for violence. They're a problem in the city. I am always hesitant to say that that these groups are gone because some of these members, one in particular, I think, Anthony Woodson, was previously arrested in another grand jury matter. Right, he's arrested here for incidents that he was involved in. While he was in custody the entire time, right, he's still an overlap with one of these groups. And what we do see is when we do take down one of these groups, maybe some of those members who were still active in that criminal sphere go and create a new group or join another group. And so that's when we're talking about we're not stopping and that there's all of these cold cases and all of these shootings, that's what we mean. Go ahead and join your other group. We're going to follow you. We're going to figure out what you're doing. You pull the trigger, we're coming after you. That's what we're telling everybody right now. So, no, I wouldn't say that we've actively shut everything down, but it would be wise for all of those people out there who are pulling the trigger to maybe cool it for a little bit. And I think we will see a cooling effect in those neighborhoods that are affected and were affected by these crime drivers.
Is there kind of a grand jury report in this case? I know sometimes there's a report listed where it goes into detail about each of these.
So every time there is an arrest through the grand jury, there is a presentment, a very lengthy presentment provided by the grand jurors and signed off on. And it is a sealed presentment, so it's not something we can hand over, but it lists all of the findings of the grand jury and their recommendation for charges on the various incidents as well. I believe this one was over a 100-page presentment. It's not available to the public. Any further questions? All right. Any other questions from anyone else?
From Division 65. Sometimes it's controversial to resolve crimes. In those cases, how important it was.
I'm sorry, can you say that one more time?
Yeah, okay. Sometimes teams are crucial to resolve crimes. In those cases, how important it was. Common information from the community.
So I don't want to comment on it individually, right? Overall, though, every case that we examine as a group, while these detectives weren't the assigned detectives on every shooting incident or every homicide, those files are all brought in. And everything that's in those files, if they're tips, if there's digital forensics, anything, that's all going to be re-examined. And so there are times that, yes, tips are crucial. Names are dropped, and that leads us in the right direction.
What is the message to those families, members, and victims waiting for justice for a long time? And also, if the police department have at this time any percentage of cases resolved or even still pending?
So I think the message for families and victims of crime, and this is just being realistic about the situation, right? Sometimes there's enough evidence for us to get to a point of arrest. Sometimes there's enough out there for us to get enough evidence to make an arrest. Sometimes there is not. It does not mean they're forgotten. Every single detective up here can tell you about every case that they've ever investigated and the victims on those cases. And the prosecutors who are now reviewing some of those cold cases with them, we also start remembering those names. So your loved one is not forgotten. It's just that it takes time. And if anything, this grand jury process shows how long it takes, right? Even with quite a bit of evidence, it still took 2 years to get to a point to be able to make arrests.
I know you mentioned the bragging over social media and the creation of music videos and lyrics. Do you think that was the depth of the motive here, or could you share any further details as to why with these 19 individuals and the others you guys are now looking for?
I think that unfortunately what we see is that it becomes the motive, right? Maybe there was a fist fight on the block between two groups of people or two groups of friends. They eventually become these groups and they name themselves. They find a rapper who starts rapping about the other person on the other side. And that becomes the motive. The motive becomes, how can I shoot that person? How can I win some points? And it's sad, they make it like scoring basketball points, right? So they are going out there and they're actively trying to get the other side to respond. And they do, right? And then that causes a back and forth between both groups. So it's definitely a lot of the motive in these situations. It has nothing to do with drugs, nothing like we normally see, or what we imagine from years ago in the city. It's a lot of it is based off of these music videos or Instagram or bragging rights.
Ego.
Yes, yes.
And another question, you talked about previous cases that you guys were investigating connections to. Does that also apply to 2025 crimes as well?
Well, I think the investigations are always ongoing. And when my friends at the police department come and say, hey, we want to start another investigation or a different area, any case that's not been solved is one that we will look into. But you have to remember that these people are all connected. Some of them are just getting off the street now. So yes, of course, we'll continue to look into these investigations into the various groups. We're not going anywhere. As you can see from what I said in the beginning, right? We've been in South Philly, we've been in West Philly, we've been in North Philly. We haven't left. And this is now our third investigation out in West Philadelphia.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you all.
Sorry, I didn't mean to imply that you forgot.
I'm going to say 0 to 6.
Emailing out that was to the specs or anything like that, just quick.
Yeah, we should be able to. Yeah.
All right, just to the normal email. Okay, that'd be great.
All right.
Just your name.